So, why don't we first start with what's going to happen when you have an officer involved shooting involving an ICE agent? What is the internal process that happens after that shooting takes place?
Well, generally, the agent will be taken out of the scenario, which is indeed what happens. Um, and normally, an agent will have their own liability insurance, which would actually cover legal counsel in this particular case as well. Eventually, your internal affairs or your internal investigation will take place to decide if it was a legitimate shoot or non-shoot. And in the interim, obviously, legal ramifications could be taking place either at the state and local level, probably not in this case at the federal level, because the agent was working under the auspices of his day-to-day duties. But anyway, that would all have to be worked out and worked through the courts.
Got it. Tell me a little bit about the sort of training that someone like this officer might get related to the use of firearms. Obviously, they're carrying a firearm in their general duties. What's the training before they are out in the field being an ICE agent?
Sure. So when an agent is hired, he or she undergoes a rigorous 6 to 9 month training down in the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center down in Flitsey, Georgia, in which almost on a daily basis that agent is put through some sort of firearms training, very rigorous on a regular basis, and put in situations where they actually use outside role actors for shoot, non-shoot situation, when to use lethal force, what other types of force is necessary to complete their mission. So that happens almost on a daily basis when they're down during training. Then when they're back up in the field, they qualify 4 times a year. They qualify at the range, whether it be indoor or outdoor. And again, during that time frame, there may be scenarios where they're put into additional training again to make quick reactions, when to use your weapon, when not to. For example, there are different computer modules in which they can go through those types of things. So it's part of the job. It's a constant with law enforcement officials. So they have to stay on top of their game on a regular basis.
I can't impugn this particular officer in any way. I don't know what their experience is, but obviously there has been an effort to hire more and more people to join ICE. Do you have any idea if that same rigor in terms of training has remained?
It absolutely has remained. They still have to go through what's called criminal investigative training and then ICE training specifically. So that does not train. So they will not or they have not changed their standards and made them any type of lesser degree based on their hiring capabilities.
All right, cool. Now I want to kind of ask you sort of some emotional questions, and you can tell me honestly if you want to or not. But the first is, what is the impact of an incident like this on the officer themselves?
Tremendous. I mean, you just don't take a person's life, half-handedly. Obviously, this is going to weigh upon his during his entire career. He's already being second guessed, but he has to live with the fact that he used lethal force in this situation. I don't want to opine on everything, but I think we've talked about it in the past where these individuals that are protesting have been taking it too far. And when they use lethal force, and that's exactly what a car is, lethal force, that agent or that law enforcement official has the authority to take that person's life because it's either he or she. Now, in this particular scenario, this agent has to make a decision in split seconds, sometimes, less than that. And so a number of different things are going through his mind. One of them being, if she turns around and backs into me, she could have killed him that way as well. So, that'll all come out as far as the investigation goes, but it's very difficult for the agent but that's what he's trained to do. And then afterwards, and obviously it's going to be difficult. He may seek psychological help, etc. But they have to live with that their entire careers.
Mhm. And what does an incident like this do for the morale of the agency overall and other officers?
I mean, no one likes to take a life for whatever reason. And again, I don't want to opine on specifically what happened in this situation. I've seen it from a number of different angles. That'll all be worked out to determine whether it was a good shoot or not a good shoot. But the fact is that ICE officers, as well as other law enforcement officers, have the authority and should use lethal force when lethal force is being used against them.
Mhm. Um, I think there have been there, and it's likely there will be more protests. Um, Clearly, there have been attacks or threats against ICE offices. There's been a shooting at an ICE office. So obviously everyone's on really on high alert. What would you recommend? I mean, if people are going to protest, the amount of space they need to give uh ICE officers acting in their official duties.
Well, I think we've talked about this before with the Worcester incident. You cross a line when you're peacefully protesting on the outside between that and impeding these agents with their operations going on. In this particular case, a car was used. In this particular case, the lady who was shot was asked to stop and get out of the car. And so she specifically failed to answer those police officers' demands or the ICE agent's demands. And she specifically put it upon herself to impede this investigation. That should not be happening. There's a difference between standing on the sidewalk, blowing a whistle, doing whatever, and using your car to particularly take a life, that agent's life, specifically to do what you have to do to protest or whatever you're trying to accomplish at the end of the day. We will never know with this particular woman.
Mhm. Would you feel comfortable talking about what the political tone does to heighten real world situations?
Sure. I mean, the rhetoric, on both sides obviously gets people, and unfortunately, the country is pretty split on how they feel with regards to immigration issues. But the rhetoric heightens people, as does social media, with what they can and cannot do, taking things into their own hands, for example, which should not be happening. Again, at the end of the day, when you're out there, do you physically impede a law enforcement operation? Why would you do that? I mean, I just don't understand that. Again, you want to safely, protest on the sideline, on the sidewalk, whatever. But there's a difference, absolutely a difference between getting involved yourself, physically taking a car, an automobile, which is a lethal weapon in this case, and trying to run over an agent. Um, even if, again, well, again, I don't want to get into specifics. I don't know all the facts with what led up to that scenario. But using a car to get in the way in this situation is dangerous and deadly, and that's exactly what happened.
Mhm. My last question is I can't Monday morning quarterback this case. However, um, the Trump administration and DHS has been pretty public about the cities they're going to target, and they say openly, we're going to have a big showing in this particular jurisdiction. Does that create risks um when you're showing all your cards right off the bat?
Well, I mean, take the politics away from this. ICE agents have a job to do, and they have a job to do based on what comes down from headquarters, what comes down from the administration, et cetera. It could be in a red state, it could be in a blue state. But the fact is their job does not change. They have to make arrests of people who are in the United States illegally, who either have existing warrants of deportation or who are in the country illegally and fail to come into the country legally. So that doesn't change. It doesn't matter where that is. To the agent, it doesn't matter if it's a blue state or a red state. They have to worry about their own personal safety. They have to worry about getting the job done.
Is there anything that you think the public doesn't understand that I haven't asked you yet?
That they don't understand. I think most people would kind of get the fact that you've taken it a bit too far when you're using a car to run over an agent.
Hmm.
I don't see how you can defend that in any specific way. I've seen the different angles from people that were filming. It appears that the agent's legs were taken out from underneath him. He was able to stay on his feet, which were good. But again, I mentioned earlier that car could have easily got put in reverse and tried to run that agent over or run
Hmm.
those other agents over. So these are split decisions that agents have to make with regards to their life, their lives, their livelihoods, and then the livelihood of the person or the aggressor.